So today we'll be working on natural versus defined beards. He's grown out his beard a little bit. We're gonna really showcase the difference between keeping it natural and following the natural outline. His beard is somewhat grown out. We actually do bring it down to a 1 on the regular basis, and we do keep it pretty much between natural and defined. Today, I'll be showing you natural first before we do defined. So the first step is I'll be grabbing my liner. I'm just going to follow the natural outline of his beard. So important to notice that when you're using the liner and you're keeping it natural, you just want to follow the natural hair growth without pushing it back. I really like to brush and comb the beard out. So I did one side of the beard. As you can see here, I followed the natural outline of his beard. At the bottom, I followed it naturally. So natural versus defined, the pros of having it natural is that the growth stage of him growing the beard out after the haircut, it's actually going to keep it less work for him. So he doesn't have to come back so often. Whereas if you define the beard lineup, right, you're going to have to keep coming back and touching it up. So usually when you have a sharp beard lineup, you're pushing the hairline back and you're keeping it more sharp and precise. Whereas natural, it kind of gives you that earthy look, right? The more natural vibe. Whereas sharp lineups, you could compare to a lot of, NBA players, guys with really sharp, aggressive beards. So now we'll be working on his mustache. So keeping it very natural, you just want to touch just above the lip. So with the liner, you're going to come over top and just tap, tap, tap. So I'll showcase that right there. So there you have it. Without pushing the mustache back, I'm keeping it right above the lips and I'm just tapping, keeping it very natural. If I were to have it more defined, I would actually bring it up higher and just come up and push a little bit more, and that would make it more defined. Also on the top of the mustache, keeping it natural is just touching the little straggles that stick out. So this, keeping it natural, I'm going to just go over it and barely touch it. Whereas defined, you're actually pushing down and going into the mustache. That creates more of a sharper edge up. So doing under the beard, natural versus defined. So here we have more of a defined line up in the bottom. I actually brought it up higher than the natural outline. But keeping it sharper under the beard is okay if a client does want it sharper, because you can't really see under when the client's looking straight on, right? So you want to go with the shape of the face. Now turning onto this side, Curly's beard, you see all the growth on the top. We're going to have to take that out. And this will still be considered natural because some guys actually don't want to keep that extra fuzz on the top. So with some people that want to choose more of a natural outline instead of a defined outline, the natural outline is pretty much where the hair grows naturally and you don't have to do much maintenance. You're only getting touched up probably like every 3 weeks to a month. Whereas the defined hairline, you'd probably get a touch up every week or even after like 4 or 5 days, depending on how dense and how coarse your beard is. Every growth is different with every person. Some people have more denser beards, some, medium fine. So it's always gonna be different for everybody. But the difference between the natural and defined is pretty much defined is sharper, it's cleaner, it's more precise. So from a distance, if you look at someone, you're really gonna see a pop, really symmetrical. And some people love that. Whereas natural, you have more of like that earthy, like rugged look. And it all depends on preference on what you enjoy and like. I think living in Canada, it does get cold. Winter days where some guys like it more rugged and more fuller. It actually does keep you warm. Whereas, you can't even jump into the barber shop where you continuously get those beard outlines sharp. So some people want to stay at home and maybe not get it touched up. So it could be a seasonal thing. I find a lot of people get more of a defined hairline, maybe more hot weather, where they like it super sharp and clean because the weather's nice and hot, and they keep it short and fresh, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that having a bigger beard or a more full beard, it can't be defined. Actually, having it darker and fuller and lining that up, it actually makes it pop more because of the boldness and the darkness of the beard. So here we have a natural beard outline. I really followed the natural outline of Curly's beard, running from the side to the lips and to the bottom, and on this side as well. So you can see here it has more of a rugged, earthy type of vibe when you look at the natural beard lineup. So now we're going to segue into a defined beard outline. So now we're going to be doing a defined beard lineup. So I'm actually going to bring it down to a number 1, closed. I'm going to brush this beard down to find the natural way of how it grows. I'll work on one side first and then I'll work on the other. So I'm always going against the grain. As I'm cutting, I'm always following the contour, and I'm actually feeling the clipper touch his skin, and I'm going with the grooves of his face. That would help get every little bit of hair. As you can see here, his beard actually reverses and shoots up. So I'm going to go reverse and go against it by going down. When cutting the beard, you can really hear it, you could feel it, and you could see it. Those are the 3 things that makes a big difference. So now we'll be working on doing a defined beard lineup. Having a defined beard lineup are guys that want it super polished and sharp and precise. So you're actually going to sometimes push a little bit back in order for it to create a sharper edge up that really pops out. So with Curly, we kept it natural before this. I followed the natural outline. Now by keeping it more polished and sharp on a defined beard outline, I'm just going to do it a tad bit pushed in, but keep it still as natural as possible. So you're kind of going in between, best of both worlds. Now that we have it shorter, we can really follow and see the beard outline. I'll be starting from the bottom and using the wider part of the blade because I have that full access to push down on the beard. And as I work my way up, I'll be using the corners to kind of really edge up and create more of a C shape and keep it really defined. So I'm just touching it just a bit lower. It may look defined already, but it actually will pop out more once I trim it and push it just a little bit. And then when I use a straight razor, that's what's really going to make it pop, right? And how do you like the beard over here? You like it higher or pretty low? Where do you like? You like it around there or higher? A little higher, right? A little higher, yeah. Just under the jawline, I think we usually do it. Okay. Now under the jawline, we're actually going to bring it up just under the jawline and keep it really sharp. So I usually start the center point, and I'm usually right in front of the client, straight on. Just going to tilt his head facing me and make him look up. So now I can see what's under there. So the first thing I'm going to do is really target exactly where he wants it. So he actually pointed it before this in the mirror where he wanted it. And I'm just going to go right just under the natural jawline, about ½ an inch lower. So that would be my first point. Now staying straight on, it's important to stay straight on because if you're from the side and you're lining it up, you're not going to see everything from the front. The client sees himself from the front when he looks at himself in the mirror. So come straight on. Now when I turn under his beard to the camera, you can actually see it's very straight right across. And it's more polished and sharp, what I talked about earlier, about having a defined beard lineup. So you can actually see all the little hairs and stubble. Where I'm going to knock those stubbles off and create more of a sharper line. So I'm actually going to take these little stubbles off and pretty much paint with my liner a sharper edge. So the trick here is pushing down, having a lot of control. I usually use one of my fingers as a pivot to kind of control the liner so I'm not shaky. So I have my pinky on his forehead here, and then the liner pushing down and then pulling up. And now going around the corners to create that sharp C shape, I'm going to be using the corners of my machine, and I'm just going to be rotating it. And then in between the ear and the side of the beard, I just really want to make a very straight line so it really sharpens up the back of the beard. So you should be able to see the difference, how sharp the beard became after lining it up. Now I'm going to work on this side of the mustache. And I just give it a little touch. There's no point of actually pushing it down further because his beard is set pretty high and it already looks as defined as this. So where it doesn't need to be pushed back, of course, don't push it back. So now we're really gonna polish up the beard and making it super sharp and crispy. So by doing that, we actually need to use a straight razor. I loaded up my straight razor. It's a disposable blade, locked and loaded, ready to go. All right, so the straight razor actually creates a big impact on how the beard actually pops out. So with using the trimmer, yes, it does bring a sharp edge, but with the straight razor, this is kind of like the key to people wanting to come back and get a sharper, crispier lineup. They're gonna continuously come back because once you use this is like a magic tool. So some people may want shaving gel before the shave, or some people would want more of a dry shave. So depending on this, the skin conditions and how the person reacts to certain things, you gotta be mindful. I personally like doing dry shaves as more of an experienced barber, whereas some people, they might be a little nervous where they might cut someone or nick somebody and they want to play it the safer side and use the gel. So if you're new at straight razoring, I would consider and recommend using shaving gel. You could start from the bottom or the top. Usually when I straight razor, I like to start from the top and I like working from the bottom. So think about the straight razor as like a pencil. You're just drawing and following the outline of what you created with the trimmer. So at certain points, I'm going to be using the top of the blade. Certain points I'll be using the full blade, and certain points I'll be using the bottom of the blade. And it's going to be used in different angles. So from the top, working from the top, I'll be using the top of the blade. I'll be pulling the skin nice and tight with my thumb, angling the blade, and just working right in that corner. And as I'm turning to create a nice C shape, I'm actually lifting off a little bit and just using the top edge of the blade. So I'm actually not using the full blade, I'm not using the bottom blade, I'm using the corner top. And I'm using it almost like a pencil, just tapping and drawing in. But always make sure that you're pulling the skin. This is going to be important, where the skin is pulled tight. It helps from not cutting someone or nicking them. So you may see a little bit of white stuff around the beard. That's literally just, dead skin. It's normal. We do spray aftershave and clean them off after. In the barber world, some people leave it on so the beard pops out, but maybe it may not look sanitary. It may not look great. So it's up to you as a barber. So now I'll be using shaving gel on the beard, on this side of the beard, to really show you the difference between when it's actually having a wet shave than a dry shave. I'm just going to put a little bit of shaving gel around the areas where I'm going to be shaving. Now with the wet shaving gel on this side, I'll be starting from the bottom to the top and starting from the top to the bottom to finish. So what I've noticed already using the wet shave, it's actually more smoother and the blade's gliding. Now, one of the bad things about using the shaving gel is sometimes if you get too much above and it becomes very slippery, so you can't catch the skin, you can't pull it as tight. So I feel like using the shaving gel where it needs to be and give yourself room so you can still pull the skin where it's dry would be the key thing there. So remember, you're just always pulling the opposite way. So I actually found it easier with curly using the wet gel, and actually was a lot easier and smoother. It wasn't so harsh on his skin, where the dry shave, you know, still created that defined lineup, but at the same time, it was still a little bit more rough. And, you know, depending on the person, like I said, you know, be considerate and see what's best for their skin and what they prefer. Because I do have clients that have the dry shave that love it that way, because I think it pops out more, whereas some people, they prefer the wet shave. All right. So here we have a defined beard outline using the trimmer and straight razor.